Hello friends, you're welcome to my complete Java course. These videos are the continuations of my previous video. So in these videos we are discussing about the polymorphism in Java. So earlier I have explained what is the polymorphism, what is the compile time polymorphism or runtime polymorphism. So in this video lecture we learned the new concept regarding the polymorphism. So let's start today's video lecture. So today's we are going to start with the Java runtime polymorphism with data members. A method is overwritten, not the data members. So runtime polymorphism cannot be achieved by data members. Means whatever the variables we define, we cannot override the variables. So we cannot achieve the runtime polymorphism by using the data members or by using the variables. In the example given below, both the classes have a data member speed limit. We are accessing the data member by the reference variable of parent class, which refers to the subclass object. Since we are accessing the data member which is not overridden, hence it will access the data member of the parent class always. Okay, so understand this example. In this example, we create a bike class and define a variable or data member speed limit value with 90. And the other class, Honda, we extend the bike class and again we define a speed limit data member. So this data member is not overridden. In the methods, if the method is same in the parent class and child class, they are called the overridden method. But they are not overridden. How you can say they are not overridden? Okay. So now if you create the reference of bike class and pass the object of subclass means Honda 3 class. So you are passing the object of subclass into the reference of the parent class. Now if you call the speed limit variable, so this is the reference of the parent class. So you will get the output of the parent class data member. So output will be 90, not the 150. If data member or variables could be overridden, then you will get the output of 150. But you are not getting the output 150. It means the data members is not overridden. So output is 90. Let's I show you on Eclipse IDE. Okay, now you can see the example. We create the bike class, define a data member speed limit 90. Again, Splendor class, extend the bike class, and we define the speed limit 150. And if we create the object of Splendor class, pass this object the reference variable of the bike class, and this reference variable we are calling the speed limit data member. So you can see 90 will be output. It means parent class speed limit data member is executed. So it shows that data member is not overridden. If data member is overridden, so the 150 will be the output like the method overriding. Okay, now we will discuss about Java runtime polymorphism with multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance means multiple classes extending classes like animal class. Animal class have a one method eat method. Now dog method extends animal class. So again it defines its own eat method. Now baby dog class extends the dog class. So it's also define its own eat method. Now which method will be executed if you pass the reference variable, if you create the reference variable of animal class and pass the object of the subclass. Let's see. Here we create a reference variable animal a1, a2 and a3, and in the a1 we are passing the object of animal class. In the a2 we are passing the object of dog class, and in the a3 we are passing the object of baby dog class, and we are calling the eat method on each object. So you will see in the animal class you are passing the animal type of object, so this method will be executed. But for the a2 you are passing the dog class object, so eating fruits will be executed, this method will be executed, and for the baby dog this method will be executed. If you run this program you will get the output eating fruits or drinking milk. Means whatever the reference you have that is not matter, but which object that reference variable has, that's object method will be executed. Okay. Now we will talk about what are the rules to be followed by overriding a method. Number one, name of the method must be same as that of superclass method. First rule, whatever the name of the superclass method, whatever the parameters in the superclass method, what the type of the parameter in the superclass, and what is the order of the parameter in the superclass methods, it should be exactly same in the subclass methods or overridden method. Number two, return type of overridden method must be compatible with the method being overridden. That is, if a method has a primitive type as its return type, then it must be overridden with the primitive type only. And if a method has derived type as its return type, then it must be overridden with the same type or its subclass types. So let's understand this point first, what it is saying. So now you can look, I have defined two class, bike and splendor, and splendor class is extending the bike class, and in these classes I have defined the run method. So whatever the return type of the parent class, that return type should be of the child class method or overridden method. If you change the return type of this or anything else, it will give the error. So it is showing error. So the return type must be same. Okay, one thing, if the return type is primitive type. Okay, now what happened if the return type is a class type? Suppose run method is returning the integer type. So that class also return the same class. That is not a problem. But what happened if this class type is float? Again it will throw the error. So now for the class or for the parent or child class, if a overridden method is a return type is class type, then in the parent class you will have to define the parent type class, and in the child class or subclass the method return type the same class or it's a subclass. Suppose run method return type is a number type, number. So number is the super class for all the classes like integer, double, float, or all these classes. Number is the super class. We have already learned about the classes in the data in the variable section, where we have discussed the what is the variable and data types. So there we have discussed about the what is the subclasses of number class, all these things. Okay, so here you can define number type. So here you can define a number type, and in the subclass you can define either a number type or subclass of the number types. Subclass of the number types is integer, float, double, short. You can also define short. Also then, wait a minute. So you can define a short, or even you can define a byte class. So all these the subclass of the number class. So the second point is clear. If you are defining, if your method's return type in the parent class is the primitive type, in the child class, you will have to define the method with the same return type. But the return type of the parent class is a class type. Then in the subclass, you can return the same class type, or you can return the subclass of the above written method class. Okay. Now third point is you must not reduce the visibility of a method while overriding. Visibility means, let's understand. Okay, so you cannot reduce the visibility. What is the meaning of this? Suppose you define a method public in the bike class, and in the subclass you decrease the accessibility, protected, or default or private. So you cannot decrease the accessibility. What is the accessibility and what is the sequence of the accessibility? You can watch for that. You can watch my previous video in the starting video of the access modifiers, where we have discussed about the what is the access modifier and what is the sequence of, or what is the priority of the access modifiers. So in the parent class, if you define a public, so you cannot reduce the accessibility, but you can define the same accessibility. Like in the parent class, if you define protected, then it will not show any error. Okay, but what happens if you increase the accessibility? Yes, you can increase the accessibility. Means in the parent class, if you define a protected method, in the subclass you define the public method. So there is no problem. But if you define a public method in the parent class and you are defining the protected method or private method in the subclass, it will create a problem. Now, next point is, do you must change do you must not change parameter list of a method while overriding. This point says that if your method is taking any parameters, so you cannot change in the parameters. Not you can change the number of parameters. Suppose in the overloading, if you create a method with the two parameters, in the subclass you create a same method, but the but the different argument, like you add a one argument. So this method is not the overridden method. This method is the subclass method. It will be the subclass method, but not the overridden method. For the overridden method, the method name, method parameter, method type of the parameter, or the sequence of the parameter should be same, exactly same as the parent class method. Number Next point is, you cannot increase the scope of exception while overriding a method with throws clause. What is the meaning of this point? I show you. You cannot increase the scope of exception. Okay. Suppose my parent class method is throwing an exception which is a exception class, throws exception. Okay, okay. But child class, it may be possible not throw any exception, no problem. But if it's throw the same exception, not a problem. Okay, it's also need a throw the exception. Okay, no problem. But when will be the problem? Suppose if you define exception, same exception, or subclass of the exception, which is arithmetic exception, no problem. The problem will create when you try to throw the parent class exception, like throwable. Then it will create the problem. It will show the compile time error. Okay, it will throw the compile time error. Okay, now if you define the arithmetic exception in the parent class, okay, and in the subclass you are throwing the exception, also it will throw the compile time problem. Why? Because you cannot increase the exception scope in the overridden method, or you cannot throw the parent class exception of the exception which is thrown by the parent class method. Okay, now we will discuss about the what is the difference between method overloading and method overriding in Java. Overloading and overriding. When a class has more than one method with the same name but with different arguments, then we call it as method overloading. When a superclass method is modified in the subclass, then we call this as method overriding. Overloaded methods must have a different method signature. That means they should differ at least in any one of these three things: number of arguments, types of arguments, and order of the arguments, but they must have same name. Overridden methods must have same method signature. That is, you must not change the method name, types of arguments, number of arguments, and order of arguments while overriding a superclass method. Overloaded method can have same or different return type, but in the overriding, the return type of the overridden method must be compatible with that of superclass method. That means if superclass method has primitive type as its return type, then it must be overridden with same return type. If superclass method has derived type as its return type, then it must be overridden with same type or its subclass type. Overloaded methods can have same visibility or different visibility. While overriding a superclass method, either you can keep the same visibility or you can increase the visibility, but you cannot reduce the visibility. Now, what is the difference between method? Now, next point is overloaded method can be static or not static. It doesn't affect the method overloading. You cannot override a static method. Binding between method call and method definition happens at compile time. Binding between method call and method definition happens at runtime. It shows static polymorphism. It shows dynamic polymorphism. Private methods can be overloaded, but private methods cannot be overridden. Final methods can be overloaded, but final methods cannot be overridden. For method overloading, only one class is required. That is, method overloading happens within a class. For method overriding, two classes are required. Superclass and subclass. That means method overriding happens between two classes. So friends, thank you for watching this video lecture. I hope now you have understood all the concepts regarding the polymorphism. I hope you will enjoy this video lecture. Thank you for watching this video lecture and watch my next video lecture for learning new things in Java.